Hi, everyone, and welcome to Spotlight with Scientists in School. I'm your host, Betty Bacopoulos, and today we are celebrating Science Odyssey. It is a 16-day festival that celebrates science, tech, engineering, and math all across Canada, funded by NSERC. This is why we are thrilled today to be joined by Dr. Danika Goosney, who is the VP of Research Grants and Scholarships at NSERC. We chat today about why it's important to have programs like Science Odyssey, Science Literacy, and Scientists in School in order to foster a strong science culture in Canada. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Spotlight with Scientists in School. Today, I am joined by Dr. Danika Goosney, and she is the VP of Research Grants and Scholarships at NSERC, which is Natural Sciences and Engineering Research Council of Canada. That's a mouthful.
It is indeed.
Welcome to the show. Thanks for coming.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
This is so great. So I'm going to ask you right off the bat, Danika. We all know that scientists are described as people with curious minds. They're inquisitive. What were you curious about when you were a kid?
Oh my goodness. Well, first of all, I have to say that I think all kids are curious and inquisitive. And, science has always been a huge part of my life. So I remember growing up, I grew up in Newfoundland, very interested in the natural world. So going out into the woods, looking at plants. I had a microscope from a very young age. I had an engineer for a dad, so we would play with the microscope a lot, and that actually saw me through my PhD and postdoc and everything else. I was always on that microscope. When I was a teenager, I even worked in a biology lab as part of a Women in Science and Engineering program, and so I got to do a lot of botany there too. So all of these things, but the natural world always really interested me.
Oh, and you grew up in Newfoundland. How amazing. I've been there. I love it. I love it.
So I miss it very.
Oh, I bet. Now, you studied science on both coasts. You've been on the East Coast. You were in Nova Scotia, right, doing your undergrad, and then you did your PhD on the opposite end. You went to BC. What attracted you to microbiology and immunology?
Oh, well, I would say in terms of my PhD, I was attracted first, if I'm being honest, to Vancouver, because I think that it was a beautiful city and I always wanted to live there. So I interviewed with a bunch of labs. I wasn't actually sold on microbiology at first. I was looking in the general biomedical, stem cells, cancer research, different infectious diseases. And in the end, I ended up in a lab of Dr. Brett Finley, who's this well-known infectious diseases researcher. And I fell in love with gastrointestinal bacteria. I really liked looking at how these bugs cause disease and how they affected your intestinal cells when they went through you. So, I mean, it was honestly love at first sight, not something that every little girl, I guess, dreams of growing up and studying, but I really liked gastrointestinal bacteria.
Okay, I love that sentence, to use the word love and bacteria in the same sentence, right? That's pretty awesome. Now, you were awarded the Governor General Gold Medal, right, while you were at UBC, which is for outstanding scholastic achievement. Then you had a job in research at a biotech lab. But then it seems like you did a career pivot. Like, how do you do that? And then you end up being a VP of Research Grants and Scholarships. Why?
Oh, well, there's a lot of reasons why. I have to say, if I'm being honest, that was probably the hardest decision of my life. I never, ever thought that I would leave academics or a research career. At the time when I made that sort of pivot, I was doing postdoctoral research down in San Diego at the Scripps Research Institute, fully independently funded. Everything was great. But there was a lot of personal reasons that I wanted to get back to Canada and to Vancouver in particular. So when an opportunity came to work in a small UBC startup company, I took it. And so I did work in the biotech sector for a few years. I went to a couple different companies, and I learned an absolutely incredible amount, like the steep learning curve that when you leave that academic research culture into a private industry, you learn not just a lot about industry, but a lot about yourself. And so I figured out that, over time, I wanted to move back to the East Coast, closer to family, and take a job leveraging a lot of the business skills that I developed over the course of the time with industry. So I ended up joining the Federal Public Service in Research Grants Administration, and I've been here for over 15 years now.
Oh, wow. So it's been a very long time. So why do you love it? Like, what does it mean to you personally to have this position?
Oh, my goodness. So, the work that NSERC does, first of all, the team, there's an enormous team of people that work there that are so dedicated love science every bit as much as I do, and probably more. And so, that keeps me going and that keeps me motivated every single day. You get to do things like support, NSERC supports tens of thousands of researchers and students and postdoctoral fellows each and every year. And the work that we do, either directly or indirectly, impacts science and engineering research across the country. So you get to work with people who love it. You get to support people that doing it. And personally, I get to see, like, every day, I get someone reaching out to me saying, look at this cool thing that NSERC money allowed us to do. And so across science and engineering, all of the disciplines, I'm just learning so much, and I'm just absolutely crazy about it. I would say, on the personal side, I'm particularly keen on improving equity, diversity, and inclusion in STEM. This is continuing to be a persistent issue across the board. I'm very passionate about science literacy, and so congratulations to you, scientists in school. This is stuff that we absolutely have to keep doing.
Yes.
And I'm very much focused on how to best support students and postdocs to position them for success in their careers. So kind of those three things, plus the broad science and engineering landscape, it's the perfect job.
That sounds rewarding. I know what you mean when you have someone say, look what I'm doing. It's the same thing on a smaller scale, but in a classroom, when we show up, scientists and school presenters, and then you have a kid say, look at this, I just built a bridge, or, they just get so excited, and that stuff stays with you, right? It's the reason you get up in the morning.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's so great. How do we build a stronger science culture in Canada?
Oh, that's a big question.
It is.
I think that the work that you do and other organizations are so critical in building that stronger science culture. So first of all, thank you to you and scientists in schools and others that are taking on that challenge. I do think encouraging kids to ask questions and test their hypotheses and be creative and demonstrate the value that science can bring to society, that gives them a really positive view of science and the scientific method. And that then really builds the scientific culture. So, as I said at the start, all kids are naturally curious and inquisitive, and, science really foster and kind of build that curiosity and ingenuity if we let it. So even if they don't end up in a research career or as a scientist or an engineer, having that interest and that kind of scientific knowledge and understanding about how things work and being able to think critically, that's going to help them no matter what career they're in. And it's going to help society build that broader culture of science.
So this is a perfect time maybe to talk about Science Odyssey Week, right? That's another program that NSERC supports, and Scientists in School is part of that. Tell me a little bit about this program.
Oh my goodness. So NSERC supports Science Odyssey Week, which is really all about promoting science in the schools as what you're doing. Celebration of science and tech that takes place in May every year. And the focus is really to inspire young Canadians and the general public by showcasing the amazing science and technology and engineering and math that Canada and Canadian researchers have accomplished. So, it's one of my favorite weeks of the year, and I really look forward to seeing all the activities that happen.
Yeah, and there's a lot of activities, right? Lots of opportunities for kids to do science.
There's a lot of stuff going on, yeah.
Now, like you said, NSERC is Canada's largest supporter of discovery and innovation. How do we broaden and deepen Canada's talent pipeline? In other words, how do we ensure that we're going to attract and retain our STEM talent in Canada?
Okay, so that's not a small question.
No.
So I think right now it's more critical than ever that we build this research capacity in Canada, and never has that been more highlighted than during this pandemic. And you're seeing it as we go through the impact of science and engineering on the society. I think we really need to continue building the science culture and science literacy and numeracy in the country, communicate, promote how science shapes our society. Because, if you look around, every single thing, it's science. Somewhere in there, science has built that. I think there's a lot of students out there who'd be interested in science and whose interest needs to be supported all the way from kindergarten through to graduate school and beyond. So in terms of that attraction and retention, for me, really what I want to focus on is how underrepresented or equity-seeking groups are being built up to be able to really be represented well within the STEM sciences or the STEM disciplines. So we know that there's not a lack of interest or competence leading to these groups being underrepresented. They're interested, they're competent, and we see it starting at a very young age. But we also know that there's significant barriers and biases be they implicit or explicit, or small microaggressions that kind of wear them down. And they persist at all levels of training and career stages within STEM. So while students may be attracted to pursuing science, the challenges they face once they're in their system can make it difficult to stay. So addressing this really requires every single person who's involved in STEM, the whole looking at their own biases. And believe me, everyone has biases, whether or not they believe they do or not. We all do.
That's
And
true.
you need to take action. So in my job, we give out grants and scholarships through competitive processes. And that means we need to look at every step of the process, from the eligibility criteria, the program objectives, how you evaluate them, who does the evaluating. And so we spend a lot of time reassessing and broadening our definition of research excellence that way to make sure that it's as inclusive as possible. And the last thing that I would want to say is that, we need to look at the data. So I'm a big proponent of that old adage, what gets measured gets done. So you need to know where you're at in order to know where you need to go and inform those decisions. So right now, we're currently undertaking this huge analysis across all of our programs, across different identity factors and their intersections. And since we've started collecting the self-identification data from our programs, and so when this analysis is complete, it's going to be enormously helpful at highlighting the gap areas and where we need to have more concentrated efforts. So that's really how we kind of keep that robust system growing and make sure that it's diverse and well represented. So all that to say, there's a lot of challenges in there, but it isn't dire. We are really making great progress, and you're seeing a commitment to this, and there's a better understanding of all of the issues. So I'm staying really, really positive, and I think we're really making a big change in terms of attracting and retaining the top talent that Canada has to offer.
I think we are making a difference too. I've had conversations with so many scientists, and they're, a conversation of equity, diversity, inclusion, it always comes up, and I think we are moving in the right direction, which is great. Yeah. And I can tell when you talk about how passionate you are and how this really does fuel you to continue to do the work that you do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Danika, there's so many incredible science things happening all the time right now. I think there's like the vaccine rollouts, that's pretty exciting. It's on the news. We had Perseverance rover landing on Mars. Like, how exciting is that? What scientific discovery do you follow? Like, what gets you excited in the news?
Well, like I said, so I get to see all sorts of great science come in through the doors every single day. Obviously, for me, the mRNA vaccine is a huge one. So it's kind of in my old research domain, and it's having such a huge impact on society right now as we go through this pandemic. I have to admit that there's like this kind of nerdy part of me that really is enjoying that we're using wastewater to assess COVID levels in the population.
Yes.
And it's even cooler that the general public is now discussing this over dinner. Like,
right.
And so, like, I mean, just things like that. Like, it's such incredible science.
Yeah.
Non-pandemic, I have to say that I've really gotten into a lot of the climate research, biodiversity. I think this is the area, this is such a huge, huge impact for our world. So pandemic aside, this climate change and biodiversity challenges that we're facing, the research there is amazing. And I follow that quite closely as well.
That's funny that you mentioned that. All these conversations have become dinner conversations, and we do the same thing here. We talk about it all, and right now during the pandemic, unfortunately, a lot of it is COVID related. That's for sure.
No, I think it's great that we see people debating, the R value for the day, and that there's different mathematical modelings that people are discussing. I think it's wonderful.
It is really great. I find it fascinating. I'm going to do the first time ever something called the Spotlight Speed Round, where I'm going to ask you just 5 quick questions. All right. West Coast, East Coast.
That's the impossible question. I'm a Newfoundlander who spent so much time in BC. I love them both equally. I have to pick one. It's East Coast, but
okay, you have to pick one.
Okay.
All right. Dog or cat?
Again, another impossible question. I would have all the animals if I could. I currently have 2 dogs. They are blind and they have a neurodegenerative disease, so they're a little wobbly when they walk, but they are the most adorable little creatures you could ever imagine. And it's coming up on their 10th birthday soon, so I'm very excited. So dogs, but all creatures.
Okay. Ocean view or mountains? That's my impossible question. I find that really hard to answer.
Impossible. Forced choice questions. Well, I'm a Newfoundlander, so I'm going to have to go with the ocean.
With the ocean. What book are you reading right now?
Oh, I just finished a book by Tim Caulfield, the latest book by Tim Caulfield. In Canada, I think it's called Relax, Damn It. And in the States, it's called Your Day, Your Way, depending
Oh,
on which version
yes.
of the book you get. And it's fabulous. You know, Tim Caulfield is such a great science communicator, and he talks about all the science that goes into your daily decisions and what's a big risk and what's not. So I think it's a fabulous book.
And the last one that I could only ask someone who is a microbiologist, what's your favorite microbe?
Oh, well, again, they're all so wonderful. You know, I guess I'm going to have to say that I'm forever partial to my enteropathogenic E. coli. That's what I
Ah,
studied in my PhD, and that remains my favorite bug.
that's awesome. Danika, thank you so much. We appreciate the work that you do. We're so happy on behalf of scientists in school. Thank you for all the years of collaboration and all the work you do. I think we share the same passion, the same vision to inspire our young scientists in Canada.
And thank you for all your work as well. It's absolutely wonderful to be here, and I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much. Take care.
Bye.